All right, we'll get started with Yin today. We have requests for ankle friendly, meaning someone has a sprained ankle possibly, or just like twisted it, and some inner thigh work. So we'll work that in. Um, we'll start today in reclined tree pose. So you'll come to your mat. You may want a block, a pillow, a bolster, or something near the left side of your mat. You may not need it, but it's just nice to have in case you want it. You don't have to get back up. So come down onto your back, soles of the feet on the mat to start. Extend the right leg out in front of you, just like you're lying down. Turn the left knee out to the side and bring the sole of the left foot inside the right leg. It doesn't matter where it ends up, just see where it naturally wants to go. So you'll feel that left hip is in an externally rotated position. Maybe it's a little bit much to have this left leg to the side without any support. This is where you can use a block, pillow, blanket, bolster underneath that left knee. And all that does is it offers you some support. It also, if you're not lying centered on the hips, it can help you with that. So if you feel like you're tilting, your body's tilting over to the left and the right side of the body's coming up, wedging something underneath that left knee can help you keep things even. So that way you get some width across the hip bones. So maybe like a spreading sensation of the pelvis over time. Then arms, let's start this side with arms down by the sides, palms facing up. The other option is hands on the body, somewhere that's comfortable. It could be left hand on the heart, right hand on the belly, or you can do two hands in one place, especially if you feel like that area needs a little extra attention from the energy that we can send back into the body with the palms of the hands. Eyes can be open or closed. Take a deeper breath in through the nose, back out through the nose. Inhale in through the nose, back out through the nose. Inhale in through the nose, back out through the nose. Keep going on your own. Starting to arrive in your practice. Friendly reminder to be soft and gentle in these poses so you're not going as deep as you can go. And you'll bring the left hand to the outer left thigh, help the knee back to center, bring the soles of the feet to the mat, roll over to your right side, use the hands to bring yourself up to seated. So once you come to seated, extend the legs out in front of you. We'll stay in a similar shape. We're just changing it. We'll be seated. So you'll grab onto the outer left thigh, Place the foot on top of the right thigh. So you want this outer left ankle bone to be just outside the right thigh. Bring the hands back behind you so you're sitting in a reclined position. Left foot stays flexed. Start to slide the sole of the right foot in any amount. So it's like thread the needle, but you're seated and the chest is lifted. You can stay with the chest up. You can look down the bridge of the nose or close the eyes. And if for whatever reason this isn't working for you, maybe it's too much pressure on the upper body, you can do it on your back. But if you can do it seated, do it seated. If you do it on your back, it's the same thing. You just bring it's up to you. You can keep the right foot on the mat or bring the legs in toward the body and hang on to the back of the right thigh. You just want to make sure that the head doesn't lift away from the mat if you're on your back. So same shape. You just get a little bit of different leverage when we change if we're seated, reclined. But it's nice to know what those options are so we can take them when we need them. Sometimes we have things going into the body and we need to make adjustments. And most of these poses can be flipped in several directions to accommodate the body. And if you're seated, you'll start to extend the right leg forward, then the left leg. Bring both feet in so that the soles of the feet are on the mat. Come down onto your back. If you're on your back already, you can stay there. And we'll switch sides for a reclining tree. So legs go out in front of you, sole of the right foot inside of the left leg, wherever is comfortable. It might not be in the same spot it was on the first side. Feel free to wedge something underneath that right knee if you need it, or maybe you needed it on one side and you don't on the other. That's typical sometimes. And then we'll change the arm variation. So let's get into the shoulders a little bit. You can cactus the arms, bringing the elbows in line with the shoulders. See if that feels good. You can start here, and if it builds to be too intense, then just bring the arms down by the sides or hands on the body like you did on the first side. Up to you. Make sure the left side of the body, so that left hip, left shoulder, or down on the mat, left heel. And bring the arms down by the sides. Hang on to that outer right thigh to bring the knee back to center. Sole the left foot to the mat, so both feet on the mat. Roll over to your right side again. Use the hands to bring yourself up to a reclined seat. So, hands back behind you, you're leaning back. Extend the legs out in front of you. And this time we bring the right ankle on top of the left thigh. Outer right ankle is hooking just outside of that left thigh. So you don't want it on the inside of the thigh. And then start to slide that left foot in toward the body, finding a reclined thread the needle. Chest is, well, I guess it's not reclined, you're upright. Chest is lifted, gaze goes down the bridge of the nose. You still have the option to come down on your back and keep the shape of the legs, especially if one side works, maybe the other side doesn't. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. And that foot, you can see the right foot, that should be flexed. A lot of times you get so relaxed in this, we'll see that right foot relax. And even though your body can do that, it's not great for the knee. So that's why we keep the foot flexed. Pretty much anytime the leg is in this shape, the right leg. Eyes can close wherever you are if you find comfort in that. And if you're in the seated position of this pose and it becomes too much for the upper body, you can move that left foot away from you a little bit. It'll help you adjust the weight. And if that doesn't work, then it's probably a good idea to come on your back. And start to extend that left leg forward. Right leg goes out in front of you. We'll all come to seated. So if you're on your back, come to a seat. Then this time, little different. So you're going to keep the soles of the feet together, but the feet are going to go as far away from you as possible. So normally we bring the feet in toward the body, move the feet as far away from you as possible, making a diamond shape with the legs. You move the feet as far as you can away from you, but still keeping the soles of the feet together. So find that balance. And then you'll just gently fold forward over the legs. So you can use blocks underneath the hands. You have all this space between the legs. You could also build something between the legs to rest the forehead on if the body can come down low enough. So we're playing with a similar shape in the legs, but now instead of having a deeper angle in the knees, we're sending the feet out farther away from you. So you might be feeling this maybe in the outer thighs, outer hips, possibly. We all kind of feel something a little bit different depending on how we use our bodies.
It also depends on how far away the feet are from the body. And we know that touching the forehead down on something helps the body calm. It's a good trick to have in your back pocket for when you need it. You can even just use the heels of the hands and bring them to the forehead and apply about the same amount of pressure that you would feel if you were in a child's pose. And that can instantly start to calm you down. And once we can get the body calm and relax, we start to find deeper openings and tighter places physically. And start to bring yourself back up to seated. If you have props in front of you, just set those off to the side. Use the hands to bring the knees back together. Bring the soles of the feet to the mat. Bring them out wide. Sit back, reclined, and move the knees side to side. So we've been layering on hip opening after hip opening. We'll do one more. We've been building toward it. And once you're done doing your windshield wipers, you'll come forward to hands and knees. And once you come forward to hands and knees, turn to face the side of your mat, hopefully a side where you can still see the screen. And if you're on a hard surface like me, you'll want to fold in the outer edges of the mat for extra padding for the knees. If you're on carpet, you're probably fine. Maybe have a block or two, a bolster, whatever you're using, maybe have those out in front of you, just within reach. And then once you come to hands and knees are on the mat. You'll widen the knees, hopefully getting onto the extra padding if you're using it. And then this is important, turn the toes out. So you're flexing the feet again. And then start to widen the knees. You're coming into frog pose. So this is a deep opening on the hips, inner thigh, growing area, but we've been working with this. So the body's somewhat familiar. Just make sure those toes are turned out. It's up to you how low you go. So sometimes it feels approachable to bring the forearms down to the ground in front of you. Here's where you can use blocks underneath the hands if you need more lift. If you want something underneath the head, especially if the chest isn't coming all the way down to the ground. For most of us, that will be the case. And then try not to go as deep as you can. So leave some room in the shape. Just go part of the way in, halfway, maybe less, especially if this is the tighter area of the body. And the only other thing I'll say is the hips tend to go forward ahead of the knees or backward behind the knees to make this shape easier. It's at the hardest point if you have the hips in line with the knees, which is what we're aiming for. But just keep that in mind as you find just the right spot for you to be in with this shape. Always trying to find that right balance of, finding the alignment in the pose, but not going too far in. And I didn't give this earlier, but if for some reason this isn't working, you can come on your back and do Supta Baddha Konasana. So that's soles of the feet together, knees wide, but you bring the feet in toward the body and you're reclined on your back. That's still a hip opening, inner thigh opening. Right. The time has arrived to start to make our way out of this shape. So it's an inching of lifting the chest and bringing the knees slowly back together. You'll do a little bit of one and then the other until you're back up onto hands and knees. And those props that you have that are in front of you, bring those back to the top of the mat. Extend the mat if you folded it in, and you'll come to hands and knees facing forward. So now you want to come down onto the forearms and walk the feet back behind you. Tops of the feet come down to the mat, hips to the mat, and you're setting up for Sphinx pose. So this should feel good in a number of ways. The legs are stretched back behind you after being out wide for quite a while. Forearms and hands are down on the mat, elbows and shoulders in line, hands in line with the elbows, chest reaching forward. Bring the gaze down the bridge of the nose or close the eyes, but only if you can keep the chest from collapsing. Sometimes we close the eyes and everything starts to fall down toward the mat because the mind slows down too much. And with Sphinx pose, it's really subtle because we don't want to put too much effort into the shape, but it's as if you're bringing the forearms and hands back behind you, like you're trying to slide the mat back and bring the heart forward at the same time. And that's your back bend. Always keeping the tail pointing back toward the heels. So we keep that length in the lower back. Sometimes with back bends, especially with those of us that have a flexible lower back, we get too deep of an arch in the lower back and it just takes away space. And so keeping it long requires a little extra effort. It's not the way our body naturally wants to go. So hips are pressing down and the belly just gently lifts away from the mat. So if you feel like you're pressing the belly into the mat, bring it the other way just enough. You still want to keep it soft for yin. And if you need to take a break at any point, please do so. You can just rest the head on top of the hands, stacking the hands in front of you. And you can do that whenever you want. Come back in whenever you feel like you're ready for more. When I first started teaching yin, I didn't realize how hard this pose can be until I was actually holding it for a long time. So it does take a while if you're not used to doing back bends to feel comfortable in this for an extended period of time.
but it's really good for reversing any rounding that's happening in the upper back, overall flexibility of the spine. And it brings energy into the body. All back bends do that. So it's a good natural way to wake yourself up or take away any sluggish feelings you might have. And we'll rest. So lower the chest and the head. You can stack the hands, rest the head on top of the hands. Some people find it more comforting to bring the arms down by the sides and turn the head to one side. I'll leave it to you. Either one's okay. Then your feet can relax, legs can relax. You can let the ankles roll out if they want to. Another option is to lift the feet up and move the feet side to side like windshield wipers. Make sure your lower back's okay with it if you take this option. If not, just bring the feet back down to the mat and hold still. And set the feet back down to the mat. If you were doing windshield wipers, lift the head up, bring the hands so they're back by the rib cage on the mat. Come up to hands and knees and come to seated. So feet come over to one side, legs out in front of you, soles of the feet to the mat. So this next one, you'll want a block or two next to the hips. Come on down onto your back. So heads on the mat. And walk the feet in, bring the heels right underneath the knees, press into the feet, lift the hips up, take a block on the lowest height or maybe the medium height. This isn't your first back bend. If you're feeling comfortable, you can go to the medium height, but you rest the hips on the block. So the block is what's holding the hips up, keeping them elevated. It also gives you an opportunity to lift the chest up, lift and spread it, and get the shoulder blades underneath you a little bit. And then with the block there, you don't have to hold yourself in the shape in the same way that you would if it wasn't there. So you can start to let go in the pose, staying in the back bend with less effort. And we'll explore a variety of variations of this. So just start here. Eyes can be closed. Just try not to look side to side. We don't want the head moving side to side. When we have the body in this shape, it's too much strain on the neck. So you're welcome to stay where you are. If you'd like to take the block up to a higher height and you feel ready for that, you can press into the feet, lift the hips up. If you're going all the way up to the tallest height, you need to come up onto the balls of the feet to make enough space to do that. Adjust the block to a taller height. You could take two blocks and stack them one on top of the other on the lowest height. Hips will rest down on the block. Make sure your body's okay with this. You can always come back down to a lower height if that's what you need. Chest is still lifting and spreading. Make sure the chin's away from the chest.
Still breathing deeply in through the nose, back out through the nose. And if you're on the tallest height, press into the feet, lift the hips up, come down one height lower. So maybe you're back down to the medium height. Rest the hips. Feel that adjustment in the spine if you did change the height of the block. Block still underneath the hips, lower back is free. And another option with this shape, you can choose to do it or skip it. One leg lifts up. If you feel even on the hips, then lift the other leg up. So Viparita Karani, chest is still lifted, belly hugs in a little bit, still a deep arch of the spine. And taking a moment to just reverse the blood flow in the body, get it going in the opposite direction. And start to bend the knees, bring the feet back down to the mat. Staying in supported bridge. If you're on the medium height and you can go one lower height, press into the hips, lift the hips up, lower the block down to the lowest height, resting the hips on the block. So we're just slowly working our way up and then all the way back down. Feeling the difference in height with each level. Press into the feet, lift the hips up, slide the block out from underneath you, let the hips come back down to the mat, and you'll feel that curve of the spine. We just deepened it. Hug the right knee in toward the chest. Leave that left foot where it is. We're trying to open up the lower back, not so much the legs here. Switch sides, right foot comes down, left knee comes in. Left foot comes down to the mat. So you may want to bolster a block on the right side of the mat. Press into the feet, scoot the hips over to the left, bring the knees over to the right. So, a lot of options you can do here with the prop. You can bring the block or bolster underneath the bottom knee, the right knee, so the knees don't go too far over. Left arm can come out to the side, gaze goes over the left arm. You could place the prop between the knees, that brings more space to the lower back, but it's deeper twist than having something underneath that bottom knee. So check that out, see what it feels like. And then you don't have to use props at all. You can skip them all together. Just keep the knees together, going to the right, chest going to the left. So finding a spinal twist that feels good in your body, closing the eyes, staying there. And start to bring the head back to center if it's not already there. If you have a prop between the knees, set it off to the side. Come back onto your back. Bring the knees in toward the chest. Hang on to the knees, move the knees around in a circle. So this is a nice counter when we've done a longer hold and a twist. You just feel the hips moving around underneath you. And switch the direction of your circles going the other way, evening things out before we switch over to the other side. We'll set the feet back down to the mat. If you're using props, bring it over to the left side, press into the feet, scoot the hips over to the right, knees come over to the left. Prop can go underneath the bottom leg between the knees. Right arm can reach out to the side. Feel free to skip the props if you don't have them or you feel like you don't need them. But they are nice to use every once in a while, even if you do typically do your twists without props. Just sort of changes things. It's nice to experience all versions of a twist to see what works best for you. So hips stacked and both shoulders on the mat is ideal. Sometimes we have things going on the body that doesn't allow that to happen. Bring the head back to center. Set the props off to the side. Find center on your back. Soles of the feet to the mat. Bring the knees in toward the chest. Take those circles again, knees and feet together. Keep them slow. Faster movement starts to wake the body up. So the slow, gentle movement keeps us in this relaxed state of mind, which we want to take into the next part of our practice. And switch the direction of your circles, go the other way. Set the feet back down onto the mat, roll over to your right side, use the hands to come up to seated. So you'll come back to hands and knees, have your blocks near the top of the mat, come to hands and knees. And we're coming into child's pose, but a couple of options. We're going to add a shoulder opening if we feel like our shoulders need one and they're healthy enough for it. So you'll bring the blocks toward the top of the mat. Long way is probably good enough. And then place the hands on top of the block. So thumb on the inside, pinky on the outside. Big toes together, knees apart. Sit the heels back. And come into child's pose, reaching forward, hands up on the blocks, forehead comes down. If you feel like this is too much of a shoulder opening, then you're probably fine skipping the blocks and just keeping the hands down on the mat for a more traditional version of child's pose. So those two options. If this is too much weight on tender ankles, try coming onto your back and doing a reclined butterfly pose. So you'll still get that relaxation, soles of the feet together, knees wide, arms down by the sides, resting the head on the mat. So either one of those should work. And maybe you start with the hands on the blocks. If it feels okay to stay there the whole time, then great. But if at any point it just becomes too much, skip the blocks, set them off to the side. Don't feel like you have to suffer through it. That's not the point of the practice. And you'll start to lift the head up if you're in child's pose. Set the blocks off to the side. Come back up to hands and knees and bring the feet over to one side, coming to seated on your mat, legs out in front of you. And with the legs out in front of you, we'll do a seated forward fold. So reach the arms all the way up. Take an inhale. On the exhale, start to fold over the legs. So keep this relaxed. There's a rounding of the spine that happens. Let the head and the neck go. Hands can just be to the sides of the legs. If it's easier to rest the hands on the legs, that's fine. Or the feet, if that seems like it's an easy place to be. Could also use the blocks like armrests. And then one other thing, forward folds can aggravate the lower back if there's already an issue there. So if that's the case, bend the knees so much that you can get the chest to rest on the thighs and clasp opposite elbows. Let the head and the neck go. If your lower back's fine, try it with straighter legs. You should be prepped and ready for that. And especially with this one, don't go all the way in. You'll naturally go deeper once you get the body going forward, the torso over the legs. So you don't really need to push it too much. Of course, some of us are more comfortable with forward folds than others. And start to bring yourself back up to seated. Bring the soles of the feet to the mat. Scoot yourself forward so the hips are more toward the center of the length of the mat. And before you come back down, keep the soles of the feet on the mat. If you have blocks too, bring them the wide way on the lowest height. You want them to be so that if the legs extend, they're right underneath the thighs. So you'll come down onto your back, extend the legs out in front of you. Thighs are lifted with the blocks. You can let the feet turn out. So feet are at least hip width distance, probably wider. Arms down by the sides. Close the eyes. And this is Shavasana. So when you get that elevation of the legs the way we have them with the blocks, there's a little bit more space and freedom that comes to the lower back. That can be a nice way for us to lay with the legs extended out in front of us without bringing much tension to that area. Let go of your breath control. Relax the whole face. Let the jaw become heavy. and let yourself be. Start to wiggle the fingers and the toes. Walk the feet in, soles of the feet to the mat. If you're using blocks or props underneath the thighs, see if you can set those off to the side. You can use the feet and the hands to get them where you need them. Then reach the right arm up and overhead. Roll over to your right side, maybe lying the head in the bicep. Left hand can just rest down the side of the body. Eyes can be closed. Spending some time in this transition out of Shavasana. Left hand comes down to the floor in front of you. Start to press yourself back up to seated, finding a comfortable seat. Lifting the chest, bringing the hands together in front of you. Slight bow of the head. Take a moment, honor and acknowledge your heart and your spirit, as well as everyone around you. Bring the head back up, blink open the eyes. Namaste. Thanks for joining today. Hope you had a good practice. This recovery is so important for us. So glad you made time for yourself. See you next time.